Welcome to African American History Lesson 58. In this video, we will examine the various organizations which played an active role in the struggle for civil rights. Movements do not succeed through passion alone. They require a combination of strategic vision and boots-on-the-ground activities. From courtroom battles to lunch counter sit-ins, the mid-20th century civil rights movement was powered by a constellation of organizations that transformed grassroots energy into lasting change. It was shaped by the leadership, coordination, and strategic direction of several major organizations. They each had distinct approaches, but a shared goal: dismantling systemic racism and securing full citizenship for African Americans. Groups such as the NAACP, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, commonly known as SNCC, the Community Organized Relief Effort, or CORE, and the Urban League deployed a range of tactics, from legal challenges and mass mobilization to grassroots organizing and voter registration drives. At the heart of many of these efforts was a commitment to nonviolent resistance, a philosophy that drew from both Christian theology and global anti-colonial movements in exposing the moral failures of segregation. These organizations not only helped catalyze public support for racial justice, but also played a crucial role in pressuring Congress to pass landmark federal legislation, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Together, they helped redefine American democracy through coordinated struggle and unyielding activism. Known as the Big Four, the NAACP, the SCLC, SNCC, and the CORE organization united African Americans from a range of backgrounds, regions, and philosophies. While the NAACP focused on legal strategy, SNCC emphasized grassroots youth activism. The SCLC prioritized nonviolent mass mobilization under faith-based leadership, and CORE engaged in direct action protest campaigns. Despite their differences, these organizations coordinated efforts to confront racial inequality in housing, education, employment, and voting rights. Civil rights organizations employed nonviolent resistance as a transformative method of protest. Local branches became hubs of community organizing, implementing sit-ins, freedom rides, voter registration drives, and legal challenges. These forms of direct action, often peaceful and racially inclusive, were designed to provoke public awareness and expose the brutality of segregation. When met with violence, these protests often generated national sympathy and catalyzed support for federal intervention. Yet, in some communities, the continual threat of white supremacist retaliation also led activists to consider and debate the role of self-defense, revealing the movement's evolving complexity. In 1963, civil rights leaders turned the national spotlight on Birmingham, Alabama, where the SCLC and local activists launched a series of protests culminating in the Children's Crusade. Strategically involving school-aged youth, organizers aimed to protect adult protesters from job loss while emphasizing the moral urgency of the cause. The televised images of black children being attacked with fire hoses and police dogs by Birmingham police shocked audiences worldwide and pressured President John F. Kennedy to act. That same year, an interracial and interfaith coalition led by A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin organized the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. More than 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial to demand economic justice and civil rights. There, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech, which became a defining moment in American political history. The Mississippi Freedom Summer of 1964 further revealed the dangers of determination of civil rights activism in the Deep South. Organized by SNCC, CORE, the SCLC, and the NAACP, the project aimed to register African American voters and combat the literacy tests, intimidation, and violence that suppressed black political participation. Volunteers also established freedom schools to teach black history, constitutional rights, and community organizing skills. The murder of 3 young activists, James Chaney, Andrew Goodman and Michael Schwerner exposed the lethal resistance to racial equality and drew national outrage. Their sacrifice helped catalyze the formation of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, which challenged the legitimacy of the state's all-white Democratic delegation at the 1964 Democratic National Convention. The coordinated efforts of these organizations directly contributed to historic legislative victories. In 1964, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act, which outlawed segregation in public accommodation and banned employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. 1 year later, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 targeted the disenfranchisement of African Americans by outlawing literacy tests, poll taxes, and other discriminatory practices used to suppress the black vote. These achievements marked the culmination of decades of organizing, legal strategy, and moral appeal, and affirmed the central role of civil rights organizations in reshaping the American legal and political landscape. Published in 1957 in the Christian Century, Martin Luther King Jr.'s essay, Nonviolence and Racial Justice, articulated the foundational philosophy that would guide the civil rights movement. Drawing from Christian ethics and the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, King presents nonviolence not as merely a tactic, but as a moral imperative and a way of life. He argues that nonviolent resistance is the most potent weapon available to oppressed people in their struggle for freedom and human dignity. King emphasizes that nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding, aiming for redemption and reconciliation rather than defeat of an adversary. He underscores the importance of resisting injustice without resorting to violence, stating that violence only leads to temporary victories and breeds more social problems. Instead, nonviolence confronts evil itself, not the individuals perpetrating it, allowing for the possibility of transforming opponents through love and understanding. This essay marks a significant moment in King's development as a leader and thinker, laying the groundwork for the strategies employed during the Montgomery bus boycott and subsequent civil rights campaigns. It encapsulates the ethical and strategic dimensions of nonviolent resistance, highlighting its role in achieving lasting social change. Taken by civil rights photographer Danny Lyon in 1962, John Lewis and colleagues' prayer demonstration at a segregated swimming pool in Cairo, Illinois, captures a moment of disciplined, nonviolent protest against racial segregation in public accommodations. The image shows SNCC activist John Lewis and fellow demonstrators kneeling in prayer outside a whites-only swimming pool, confronting a local symbol of exclusion with spiritual resolve and moral clarity. Originally drafted for delivery at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom on August 28, 1963, John Lewis's speech, "The Revolution is at Hand," stands as a powerful testament to the radical energy and generational urgency that youth activists brought to the civil rights movement. As the 23-year-old chairman of SNCC, Lewis was the youngest speaker at the march. He represented a growing faction within the movement that called for bold, uncompromising action against systemic racism. In his original draft, Lewis criticized the Kennedy administration's proposed civil rights bill for not going far enough, declaring, "We want our freedom and we want it now." He condemned the slow pace of federal change and warned that the movement would not wait for justice to be delivered through cautious negotiation. Though SNCC leaders ultimately revised portions of the speech in response to requests from other organizers, the final version still captured Lewis's core message, that the movement was not merely about reform, but about revolutionary transformation grounded in moral urgency. Lewis's speech highlighted the growing impatience among younger activists with the slow pace of institutional change and the persistence of racial injustice in the North and South. It affirmed that the struggle for civil rights was not simply a legal battle. It was a human revolution. The civil rights movement's success was not accidental. It was the result of coordinated vision, collective sacrifice, and the disciplined efforts of major civil rights organizations that mobilized communities across the nation. From legal battles in courtrooms to acts of civil disobedience in city streets, these organizations helped turn moral outrage into legislative transformation. Through strategic nonviolence, grassroots education, mass media, and public protest, they exposed the violence of segregation and made racial justice a national imperative. The legacy of the NAACP, the SCLC, SNCC, and CORE endure not only in the legal victories they helped secure, but also in their enduring blueprint for how organized movements can challenge injustice, shift public consciousness, and reshape democracy itself. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Also, please follow us on the social media platforms listed on the screen.